First-person shooters are largely known for their multiplayer experiences, but that's not always the case. In fact, sometimes an FPS game can garner a reputation based on its single player alone. Today, we're going to be checking out some of the best single-player FPS games that are absolute essentials for fans of this genre. Keep in mind, some of these games do have multiplayer components, but for this video, we're talking about their single-player campaigns. If that sounds fair, make sure you guys are turning those notifications on. Team Chaos is on their way to 30% notifications for the subscriber squad, and we may already be at 30,000 subs. If we are, thank you so much. Drop a like, and here we go. Stalker. Yep, Shadow of Chernobyl. This is a game that many people today have not played it, but since the long-awaited sequel is coming, I think it's a good time to talk about it. Stalker was released on PC in early 2007. It garnered a ton of attention for many reasons. The visuals, the AI, the creepy atmosphere, plus on top of all that, it actually had an interesting story and great shooting. Upon release, it had a bit of a bug problem, but since then modders and official patches have fixed things up, and even by 2021 standards, it looks good. The game is almost 15 years old. It still looks better than a lot of modern games, which is saying something. It is available on Steam, and if you're excited for the sequel, you need to go check out Shadow of Chernobyl first. At number 14 today, Fear. I feel like I've talked about this a lot lately. Horse shooters, right? One of my favorite all times. In this game, you played as an elite group of soldiers. You're tasked with containing this supernatural threat, and let's just say, your team's not prepared for what lies ahead. Fear has some of the best AI I have ever seen in a first-person shooter, and it makes the game terrifying. The level design's good, the story's engaging, the shooting is solid, and the visuals are fantastic, and the world is fascinating. It unfortunately fell off the radar as a franchise, but the original game will always be one of the best FPS campaigns in history, and it has aged excellently, if that's even a word. It's an essential if you're a fan of first-person shooters and or horror games. And guys, remember, these are first-person single-player experiences. Let me know, do you prefer multiplayer or do you prefer single-player campaigns? At number 13, Ultrakill. It's a very, very new FPS game. It's in early access right now on Steam, but the way it's shaping up, it may explode when it hits version 1.0. Ultrakill is an extremely fast-paced, old-school shooter that's heavily inspired by Doom, Quake, Serious Sam, Unreal Tournament, those arena shooters. So far, a handful of levels have been released on Steam, and the reception is positive. After 7,000 reviews, it has a 99% approval rating on Steam, and with the devs pumping out the updates in preparation for the official release, I think it's going to be huge. I'm calling it now. Mark my words. Ultrakill is going to be a big one. It's fantastic. It's one of the best single-player FPS games on the market right now. If you like old-school shooters, go try it. I don't think you're going to regret it. At number 12, Star Wars Republic Commando. Perhaps the best Star Wars shooter ever made. Yeah, I said it. It's a tactical FPS set during the early days of the Clone Wars. You played as a small squad of elite clone troopers, and you were tasked with various operations against the Trade Federation and a couple smaller factions trying to disrupt the Republic. Throughout the game, you learn a lot about the clones, actually, and you actually connect with them and how they connect with each other, as well as the way the Republic functioned during this era of Star Wars. Republic Commando is fantastic, but it unfortunately got overshadowed by the competition at that time. Halo 2, Battlefront, yeah. It's still available on Steam and Xbox Live in the store, plus it was recently re-released on the Switch and the PS4, so you can definitely find it. At number 11, Doom 3. I've said a lot of things about Doom 3 over the years on videos, both good and bad. Ultimately, I think it's a good game. And the more I think about it, the more I would say it's an essential game for fans of this genre. Pretty radical departure, we can all agree on that, from the series formula, but that's not a bad thing. Doom 1 and 2 were fast-paced power fantasies. Doom 3 was a much slower-paced, more horror-focused experience, but it still had some insane arenas with giant showdowns against soldiers. Now, Doom 3's visuals, way ahead of its time. Still looks incredible in 2021. It's a very different kind of game, but it's still a top-tier FPS game, and I think it was honestly judged a little too harshly back in the day. It was so different from the other Doom titles, people didn't like it. If you haven't played Doom 3, try it. Go try it. Seriously, play the original version, not the BFG Edition remaster, and come back and tell me what you think. At number 10, Metroid Prime. I'm going to say this, one of the most underappreciated Nintendo games ever. It blew everybody away back in 2002, but it faded into obscurity, unfortunately. It took the foundation of Super Metroid on the Super NES, which is a fantastic game, and it translated it to a first-person perspective. It dropped in 2002 on the GameCube, and it featured amazing visuals for the GameCube, a great soundtrack, an engaging story, and very deep gameplay that perfectly blended combat, exploration, and treasure hunting. It was this unique package that was unlike anything else on the market at the time. It's a masterpiece, and if you haven't played it, you are doing yourself a disservice. It's almost 20 years old. You may struggle to find a copy, but if you can, go get it. At number 9, Strafe. This was released in 2017, but it's been updated many, many times. It's now one of the most popular single-player shooters on the Steam platform. Old school shooter, lots of weapons, enemies, procedurally generated items, levels. It's like if Quake and the Binding of Isaac had a baby. And it's as awesome as that sounds. I'm serious. Tons of pixelated violence, pretty much endless replay value, super satisfying shooting that will appeal to both old school and new school FPS fans. It's a fantastic game. It's worth a look if you're a fan of boomer shooters, but you want something with a little more unique of a twist. At number 8, Call of Juarez Gunslinger. I'm putting out some bold claims today. Perhaps the best Western FPS ever made. It was the final entry in the series. It launched in 2013. It was developed by Techland. Now you played as a bounty hunter telling the story of his life in a full Wild West fashion. The combat, it's super punchy. It's satisfying. While the presentation, it was super stylized. It looks right out of a John Wayne movie. Now, it could be hard to make a fun Wild West shooter because of the lack of technology at that time. But Call of Juarez, it's incredible. This is one of the most unique FPS games I've ever played, and it's still a favorite of mine to this day. At number 7, Superhot. Even if you haven't played the game, you probably know the art style. You've probably seen the trailer. It was released in 2016 for the PC. It later got console ports thanks to its immense popularity. It's just unique. Let's just put it that way. You're dropped into a level and you simply have to get from point A to point B. But time only moves when the player moves. So it makes it feel like this blend of FPS and real-time strategy and the Matrix and all put into one. It's extremely unique, but it's also super replayable. It's one of the most popular indie games of the last decade. I would even say it's one of the best single-player FPS games ever released. I really want to see what this studio does next, to be honest with you. At number 6, Wolfenstein: The New Order. I've talked about this a lot lately, too. It's been around forever. It's extremely up and down. Bethesda decided to take another swing at the license with a full reboot developed by Machine Games. Now, The New Order launched in 2014. It put you back in the shoes of BJ, an American World War II veteran who wakes up in an alternate timeline where Germany won the Second World War and they took over the entire planet. So, it's up to you. Get the resistance together and take the planet back, right? One country at a time. Disrupt the regime's operation from the inside out. The shooting and action are heavily inspired by the old school games, but the level design, it took a lot of influence from modern shooters. You had weapon upgrades, stealth elements, multiple routes to your destination. It was super replayable. It is a fantastic game. It's certainly one of the best FPS titles to come out in the last decade. And if you just want to get lost in a single-player campaign and the story, it's for you. At number 5, Bioshock. A game that came out of absolutely left field, and it changed the industry forever. It dropped 14 years ago. Do you feel old yet? At that point, you have to venture around, figure out how to keep yourself alive, all while figuring out what the heck happened and why only the most disturbing people have been left behind. It was a fantastic game. It blended FPS framework with elements of RPG and survival horror. It made this thought-provoking and memorable experience that I don't want to spoil for you, because if you, for some reason, have not played Bioshock, you're in for a treat. Go get it. Find it. Play it. Don't get spoiled. It's crazy. At number 4, Titanfall 2. Now, Titanfall started as a multiplayer-focused game, but ironically, most people remember Titanfall for the absolutely incredible campaign of Titanfall 2. I remember the original Titanfall. We got to go early and play this thing, and it was just, it was mind-blowing. But Titanfall 2 ramped it up. First game, it didn't really have a single-player campaign, but 2, it corrected the issue in grand fashion. The story was engaging. The world was amazing. The writing was great. Level design was some of the best in FPS history, and you were committed to these characters. Every single level of Titanfall 2 is better than the last, and they all play better than they're all unique. It was smooth. The combat was great. The movement was amazing. The shooting feels fantastic. And the Titan battles, yeah. Titanfall 2 is an amazing game, and the single-player campaign is one of the best in FPS history. It's definitely a top 4. At number 3, only 3 left. The best of the best. Doom 2016. So, following Doom 3, The franchise fell off the radar, as other franchises like Halo and Call of Duty took the spot. Doom 4 was stuck in development for almost a decade before ID Software threw up their hands and said no, and they decided to do a full series reboot. Now, Doom 16, it took the skeleton of the original Doom games, but it added elements of later FPS games like Quake and Unreal. It added more verticality, the dynamic combat. Then, they went another step further. They added some light RPG elements like weapon upgrades, character upgrades, countless secrets for you to go hunting for. Doom 2016 is amazing in every single way. But, you know what's arguably better? At number 2, Doom Eternal. So Doom took the framework, or Eternal took the framework from 2016 and expanded upon it in every way. And while some players did prefer the simplicity of the first game, thousands upon thousands of others adored Doom Eternal as the progression of the franchise. The level designs, they're still open. They still encourage exploration. The combat, it was heavily expanded upon. New weapon mods, upgrades, power-ups, mechanics. You now have things like the flamethrower, the grapple hook, a super punch. It's just crazy stuff. Eternal is a very complex game, but once you get the mechanics down, you have all the buttons in your muscle memory. It's one of the best first-person shooters ever made. Honestly, I have no idea where ID Software is going to go with the next Doom game. I don't know how they're going to go even higher than Eternal, but if there's one studio that I trust to blow me away again and again, it's them. And at number 1 today, I think this is going to be unanimous, the best single-player FPS game ever made? HalfLife. I mean, most influential for sure. It was released for the PC in '98, and it changed everything. It changed how we looked at games. It told a story about a scientist trying to escape a research facility following an alien invasion, and you have to not only find weapons to fight them off with, but you had to solve puzzles to try to get the heck out of there. I mean, Half-Life Story's presentation was fantastic. It was great. The levels were crazy. The shooting was excellent. The replay value was off the charts. And then we got mod tools. Yeah, I'm not even going to go down that wormhole. You guys already know. It's one of the most influential video games of all time, and it holds up surprisingly well. So if you're a fan of first-person shooters, Half-Life is an absolute essential game to play. And if you ask me, I think it has earned the number 1 spot of the best single-player FPS out there. There you go. That's the list. Let me know one game that did not get recognition that I just whiffed on that deserved it. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon.